Hello everyone, welcome to another video on the channel and welcome to another GT Sport Daily Race C race and strategy guide. We have reached the halfway point of 2021, it's week 26 and we have a very unusual and original combination to delve into because we are taking Group 1 machinery to Circuit de Sainte-Croix. Now we've got 7 laps to get around because it is a very long lap, just over 3 minutes, or just under 3 minutes, sorry. We have fuel consumption at times 3, which is not going to prove much of an issue, tyre wear at times 7, and we have the racing soft and the racing medium tyres, which we're going to assume both of which will be mandatory. So yeah, we are visiting Circuit de Sainte-Croix for only the second time since I've been playing Gran Turismo Sport for Daily Race C, which is very nice to see, let's be honest. That is a very nice location, very picturesque and beautiful. There's always a little bit of debate as into how you actually pronounce it. Some people say Sainte-Croix, some people say Sainte-Croix or Sainte-Croix. Whatever way we kind of pronounce it, it is definitely a location we need to be visiting a little bit more in Gran Turismo Sport, if you ask me. Now the car category that we're going to be sort of driving around here may not be everyone's first choice. I think people would be happier to see maybe Group 3 or even Group 2. We are taking the Group 1 cars around here, and as always Group 1 is a little bit of a mixed bag when it comes to the car selection. There's almost 4 kind of subcategories within the category itself. We've got the modern day LMP1s from around 2016 and 2015. Very often they are the dominant cars of the class on most traditional circuits. Then we've got the non-hybrid LMPs, a couple of them. We've got the Audi and the Peugeot. The Group C monsters from the late 80s, early 90s, 5 of them tend to not be that competitive over most circuits. And finally we've got the Vision Gran Turismo cars, which very rarely feature whenever we are in Group 1. Will this week be any different? We shall find out as the week progresses. So before we kind of get into the strategy, we did jump into some cars just to kind of get a feel for them, get an idea of what may well be competitive. And first up we have jumped into the Sauber Mercedes C89, driven by Michael Schumacher, believe it or not, all the way back in the sort of early 90s before he made his Formula 1 debut, to represent Group C. Now I'm going to rule out the Group C cars straight away as being that competitive. In my book they're around about a second and a half to maybe 2 seconds off the pace. They just lack the downforce for a lot of the mid-speed corners around this circuit. Although if you can sort of obviously be close to somebody along that very long back straight, then you are definitely in the pound seats in that car. Next up we jumped into the Peugeot 908 just to see how the non-hybrid LMPs are going to sort of fare around this circuit. So these cars tend to have lots of downforce, maybe not quite as much as the modern day LMP ones, but they are quicker in a straight line. They don't have that hybrid obviously to boost them out the corners, so it kind of evens itself out. They're faster at the end of the straights but slower at the beginning of the straights. Now I did find the Peugeot 908 to be quite competitive, although it was around about half a second in lap time off the Toyota TS050, which we're going to take a look at next. But I do believe in the right hands this car is going to be very competitive this week. As I said, maybe giving up around about half a second. I think we did a 2 minute 55.5 as our optimal over the course of a race run, which is around about 4 tenths slower than we managed in the Toyota. The finishing time there, 21 minute 05. I actually did do a full race run in the Peugeot just to get a feel for it. And representing the hybrid LMPs, we are in what tends to be the best hybrid LMP for race conditions anyway. Obviously the R18 tends to be a little bit quicker over one lap if you can maintain that hybrid, but overall there's never really that much between the Toyota, Porsche and R18 from Audi. They represent the modern day LMP ones. Now I was quite surprised at just how competitive this Toyota was around this track. I thought the sort of layout of it with the long straights would sort of more favour something like the 908, but obviously we're carrying a little bit more downforce here, so we can kind of, particularly through this final sector, carry a whole lot of speed. Obviously we then get that hybrid boost out of the slower corners, which seems to be enough to make up and actually surpass the speed of the Peugeot 908, around about 4 tenths quicker on our optimal lap there. Not a whole lot over the course of a 3 minute lap, to be perfectly honest with you. In terms of race time, we actually finished 9 seconds ahead of the Peugeot 908. So you're probably thinking from that then surely we should just be using a hybrid LMP rather than one of the non-hybrid LMPs, and I get exactly where you're coming from in that regard. However, in race trim, once you involve some other cars and drivers, the Toyota, the Audi and the Porsche, are they going to be really able to kind of exhibit or kind of take advantage of being able to use that high downforce through the twisty sections? Throw in some dirty air there as well, and possibly it means that the kind of hybrids are going to be stifled a little bit just by the fact they can't use their main advantage. The Peugeot 908 and maybe something like the Audi R18 from 2011, or maybe even the Tomahawk Vision Gran Turismo car, which all have very good downforce, maybe not as much as the modern day LMP ones, are never going to have any problems using their main advantage, which is their straight line speed. And just to give you a visual example of how much quicker the Peugeot 908 is down the straight compared to the Toyota, it can take 1.1 seconds out of the Toyota down that long straight. Throw in some slipstream and it's going to be even more than that. So it's kind of a bit of a balancing act as to what car is going to be the most competitive here. For the strategy testing, we're actually going to jump into the Peugeot 908. Because when it comes to the strategy, it doesn't make a massive amount of difference what car you're in. Pretty much what applies to one car will pretty much always apply to every car. So let's move on to the strategy element of the video now and see how long these soft and medium tyres are going to last, and what is going to be the best way to kind of approach the race depending on what position you're starting in the field. Now, the eagle-eyed amongst you will have noticed that we've not been using cockpit view, because in the LMP1 cars, or both the non-hybrid and the hybrid, the cockpit view is very, very restrictive. There's also a little bit of the lighting seems to be a little bit weird around this track, which creates a bit of an odd glare on the track surface, which again makes it very difficult. However, some of the cars out there in the VGT class have some very nice cockpits. We've got the McLaren here, the Peugeot L750, and I think we finish off with the Alpine. So we will be doing a stream a little bit later on in the week where we will be using some of these cars, some different cars, and we will very much be testing out the cockpit view for them and racing in cockpit view. I think if we do a stream in the LMP cars, we might well have to sort of use the bonnet hood cam that we are on board with here. So let's get to the strategy, because I think that's really the main reason why most folk come to these videos. In terms of strategy, it's 7 laps to get round. You're going to be basically splitting it down the middle as best you can. So you're going to be doing 3 laps on the mediums and 4 laps on the soft tyres if you're looking to go for the optimal strategy, where the tyres will last the best and you'll get the sort of premium lap time if you like. So coming to the end of lap number 3 here, we started on the medium tyres. You can see there's actually quite a bit of wear on those tyres. We're going to come into the pits now, we'll get that all important pit loss and talk about the fuel. So fuel at times free, I did suspect when I seen those settings that fuel may well come into play, but from what I can tell and from all the cars I have driven, even the Group C cars, which are pretty heavy on fuel, it's not going to be too much of an issue. It's going to be close. I think we finished the race here with around about half a lap's worth of fuel in the Peugeot 908, but I can't see it being too much of an issue throughout the race. Just keep a close eye on it, because you could sort of find yourself maybe over revving the car throughout the course of the race and kind of maybe catch you short. In terms of pit loss, we comes in at 15.4 seconds, not too long at all. Group 1 cars do tend to be pretty quick when it comes to the pit loss. So 15.4 seconds for that pit loss. So here we are, now come to the end of this run. We've done 4 laps on the soft tyres here. You can see quite a bit of wear on those tyres in the bottom left hand corner. In terms of lap time though, they do hold up fairly nicely. The fuel is pretty low by this point, so the car's nice and light. You tend to get sort of slightly better tyre wear once you're kind of burning through that fuel. So this is just the end of the run. We did actually take a look at a little bit earlier on in the Peugeot. So we're going to do another run here, but this time we're going to try and push a 5th lap on the soft tyres. Obviously it's starting towards the back end of the grid, maybe even the middle of the grid, or to be perfectly honest with you, anywhere in the grid. You could well be able to get some kind of undercut on the cars around you. The soft tyres do have a massive advantage over the mediums around this track. Of course, with it being a little bit of a longer lap, it does make sense that the kind of gap between the tyres will be a little bit bigger than normal. So around about 2.2 to 2.3 seconds initially. As that tyre wear kicks in, that gap will come down just a little bit, but the undercut here is going to be massively valuable in terms of being able to jump cars around you. So if you can push a 5th lap on the soft tyres as we are doing here, or at least attempting to do here, then you should be able to sort of jump some cars throughout the pit stop sequence, maybe get some clean air, and then be able to press home that advantage as the race progresses. So this is how our soft tyres are looking as we approach the end of our 5th lap and the end of the race. Around about, what, 50% nearly wear on that front left, maybe around about 45 on the rear left, maybe about 45% on the front right as well, and maybe, I don't know, 35% on the rear right. So beyond that kind of threshold where I think the soft tyres do start to lose quite a lot of performance, of around about 30 to 35%. But in terms of handling the car, when the tyres are this old, not too bad at all. The high downforce of the Group 1 cars means that you will lose time, you will see the lap time slipping away, but the cars don't become like sort of undrivable as they can do in some other classes once the tyres get that worn. So you can push out towards a 5th lap on the soft tyres if you are pretty good at managing said tyre wear. Okay, so we've come to that point in the video where we're kind of recapping all the information we've garnered over the previous part of the video. A fairly difficult strategy guide to make, to be honest with you. Group 1 is always a bit of a difficult class to make a strategy guide for, particularly when you're not entirely sure what car is going to be the quickest. So we have tested a few cars out there. As I said, I'm going to rule the Group C cars out as being competitive. I think they're giving about 1.5 to 2 seconds a lap away to some of the quickest cars out there. In terms of the hybrids and the non-hybrids, or the LMP hybrids and LMP non-hybrids, there doesn't seem to be a whole lot about them. They kind of make their lap time in slightly different ways. Because of that, I think the non-hybrid LMPs are slightly less compromised in race conditions with the traffic and the dirty air. And I funny feeling, although I can't say for certain, I will be interested to find out as the week progresses what cars become the most popular. But I have a funny feeling the Peugeot 908 maybe will be the go-to car initially. Even if over one lap it is not the absolute quickest, I think just in race conditions it doesn't lose as much in the twisty sections, in the traffic, because it doesn't rely on those sections as much as like something like the Toyota TS050, and it's more reliant on its straight line speed, which it shouldn't be compromised with as the race unfolds. In terms of strategy, it's nothing too complicated out there. The soft tyres do have a big advantage over the mediums, around about 2 and a bit seconds initially when the tyres are of equal life. That means that you want to be running as much time as you can on the soft tyres, which is obviously understandable. You can push the soft tyres out to 5 laps. I think you would be asking an awful lot to try and do 6 laps on the soft tyres, but some of the aliens out there may well manage it and they kind of last the first challenges because they've got that inherent speed advantage over people anyway. A little bit of a shame though, the strategy is becoming a little bit one-dimensional in a lot of these races at the moment, just because of the longer pit stop. I'm still a fan of the longer pit stops, but I think they maybe should have balanced out with slightly longer races as well. Imagine this race being about 11 laps, maybe 12 laps, taking around about 35 to 40 minutes. Then the sort of one stop and the 2 strategy very much come into the 4. I still think the one stop strategy in these circumstances would top out, but at least the 2 stop strategy would then become an option. And I don't think there'd be any complaints from people if they just did a daily race seat once an hour. 40-minute race, all the other gubbins maybe takes about 5 to 10 minutes, and then a little break in between before you start the next one. I think people would be quite happy with a daily race seat of that kind of length. Okay then, let's finish the video with a little bit of a lap guide. We're in the Toyota TS050 for this lap guide. Brake balance at +4, kind of look after those front tyres. We cross the start finish line, we approach the very fast left hand kink. Full throttle on whatever car you're in, you're looking for the 150 metre board as you come out of there, as your braking reference, keeping it as close as you can into this barrier here to get the best line through the corner. Maximum acceleration, best exit speed you can as we hit the first of the long straights down this circuit. Toyota gets a nice squirt of hybrid out of that corner, but will struggle for top end as we approach the hairpin. Looking for the 150 metre board as we hit the brakes. Nice and tight into this apex here, and it sort of widens on the exit so you can get on the power quite early. The red barrier on the right hand side as your reference point. We missed the apex by quite a bit there. I found with a lot of these corners you have to brake a little bit earlier than you might expect. Last of the blue boards here is kind of your reference mark as you trail brake into this right hander here. Very easy to run wide into that barrier there. I've done that several times over the course of making this strategy guide. 100 metre board as we approach this left hander here. Again, maybe braking just before that, and again at the end of the shadow here, kind of hard to find reference points, but I did find for both those left-handers that you do have to brake a little bit earlier than you might expect to get the best speed. The ambulance on the right hand side is a nice reference mark into this left-hander here. And now we head downhill through this right sequence. It takes us onto the bridge. It's just about finding the best line here and slowing down in the best possible way. Watch out for the bump as you go onto the bridge here. If you accelerate too much over that, it will fire into the barrier on the left hand side. And we've got another reasonable strength here that doesn't favour our hybrid car, but certainly will favour some of the other cars. Just before the 150 metre, around about the 150 metre mark into this, sort of tighter than you might expect left-hander, and then we've got a very important corner. It's a kind of meandering right-hander. Very hard to find a reference point. We can hit the accelerator, but the sort of best speed you can carry through there, you're going to carry that all the way down one of the longest straights in the game. So this is where the non-hybrid LMPs, and in particular the Group C cars, have a big advantage over the hybrids. Our Toyota here is going to struggle to get to about 197, 198 miles an hour, I think, giving up nearly 15 miles an hour to some of the other cars. 150 metre board as your reference marker for this hairpin here, opens up on the exit. So try to get onto that power as early as possible. Now we do come into a section, a very fast flowing section. It does favour the high downforce here of the Toyota. This right hander here, just a little bit of a lift in the Toyota, and then come into this left hander here. It's the start of the red and white barriers. This corner is a little bit tighter than you might expect. Compromise your speed on the entry so you can go full throttle through the right hander, and then just as the start of the curb here into this right hander here, bit of an odd line through here. It took quite a bit of goes to kind of start getting the line right, and then into the last corner, a left hander onto the start finish straight. Very, very difficult corner, hard to find the reference point, very easy to run wide. But that's a lap of Circuit de Sainte-Croix in the Toyota TS050. We are on the C layout, which is the normal layout, not the reverse one. Very, very interesting racing prospect, I think. I'm going to enjoy doing this one. A little bit of a shame that I'm not going to be able to use the base cars in cockpit view, but we will try and find maybe a little bit of a secret sauce car in amongst the Vision Gran Turismos that we can use the cockpit view. Certainly when we get to streaming, we'll jump on our US account where we don't really care about our DR too much, and we'll use some unusual cars. So let me know what you think in the comments of this race. Are you glad to see Sainte-Croix? Are you a little bit disappointed it's Group 1 and not Group 3? I think a lot of people will be disappointed in that, but it's nice to see Sainte-Croix on the calendar. Please do hit that like button, please do hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you've made it to this point of the video, then you are a superstar, and all that's left to say is thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you on the next one. Goodbye now.